Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Raven Payne. Nearly a dozen bills regarding LGBTQ youth and critical race theory are raising concerns. 3 of the bills are being heard in committee meetings this week, with topics including criminalizing gender-affirming healthcare, transgender youth in sports, and critical race theory in school curriculum. One bill discusses students obtaining written permission from their parents when involved in clubs or groups regarding gender identity or sexuality. Another bill would make all Arizona documents provide only an M or F option for the gender marker. The Human Rights Campaign and Arizona LGBTQ Caucus Chairman, Representative Cesar Chavez, are asking community members to pay attention to these bills and to voice their opinions. One parent urges a stop to the discrimination that directly impacts the lives of families and their LGBTQ youth.
That has no place in the state of Arizona. That has no place in the conversation of protecting human rights. This isn't about one silo or another or one group of people. This is truly an attack on human rights, and that has no place in the state of Arizona.
We're stepping up to the plate and saying that our kids deserve to live their life freely, to participate in school, and to have access to public spaces that their peers would have access to.
Parents and family members of LGBTQ youth will be testifying in person on Thursday morning. The Human Rights Campaign and LGBTQ Caucus asked that the community participates in the call out and asks members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to vote no on these bills. The Senate began debate today on a package of voting rights bills that would set new federal standards for voting rights, expanding mail-in balloting and early voting, and easing voter ID requirements, among other things. But the bills have been stalled in the face of a Republican Senate filibuster, and there is little hope they will pass. Voting rights activists started a hunger strike last week to bring attention to the bills, and they brought that fight to the steps of the Capitol, where many were arrested today while demanding action on the legislation. One of those hunger strikers is Tempe resident Brandon Ortega, who says he has been fasting for 6 days now.
There's hunger pains, fatigue, and overall discomfort. And getting calls from my mom personally, telling how worried she is about me, and of course all the other people here who have similar situations. I hate having to put my parents through that because they've already given so much to me.
But Ortega and the other protesters say they are committed to continuing their fast for as long as it takes to get action on the bill. An executive order signed by Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez requires all government workers on the Navajo reservation to get a COVID-19 booster shot by January 24th. The order also calls for tribal health officials to refer to being fully vaccinated as having 2 doses of a COVID vaccine and a booster shot. The Navajo Nation saw the highest case numbers this weekend since the pandemic began, with over 500 cases reported last Friday and 62 cases on Saturday. No new deaths have been reported since January 12th. President Nez urged Navajo residents to follow health guidelines and get vaccinated in a town hall today. A temporary 5G buffer zone will be added to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport this week ahead of an expected surge in 5G wireless service. Verizon and AT&T announced they will delay a new 5G wireless launch around airports. U.S. airlines say that the use of 5G service near major airports could delay or cancel thousands of flights this week. The airlines worry that 5G C-band frequency could interfere with aircraft operations. Buffer zones like the one installed at Phoenix Sky Harbor are designed to offset 5G interference. The Federal Aviation Administration says it's working to ensure that 5G wireless service doesn't affect flight safety. The nuclear power debate has been heating back up in the recent weeks as many states are looking to cut back on greenhouse gas emissions caused by other fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas. Nuclear power is currently the second largest source of electricity here in Arizona, behind natural gas. Nuclear energy opponents argue that the harmful effects of radioactive waste could last for thousands of years, if not probably disposed of. But proponents say the amount of pollution that can be reduced by nuclear is far too great to ignore. Next, we take a look back at stories concerning children here in Arizona, from adoption to feeding those less fortunate.
There are more than 14,000 children in foster care here in Arizona, and there aren't enough homes for them all. One surprise family has opened their home not only to foster children, but to become one girl's forever family. Reporter Julia Sandor shares their journey.
I had the opportunity to meet the Becerra family as they were preparing to adopt 5-year-old Raya, and their adoption proceeding was one of the first to take place in person since the pandemic.
Come over here, eat over here.
For the Becerra family, home is where the heart is.
I love my family.
Even when it takes a little longer for it to become official.
I think all of us, including the kids,
Yes.
we all felt like it's meant to be.
I remember sitting on my floor. I was just organizing documents. I remember as soon as I hung up, I said yes before I even talked to him because I knew what our family had felt.
Although they wanted to adopt Raya right away, the Department of Child Safety wanted them to get rid of their license from the state that allows them to foster children with higher needs and disabilities. But this was something the Becerra family couldn't do.
Then she went into another home that was an adoptable home, and it was hard. It was really hard.
Just 6 months later, they got the call again. Raya would become a permanent part of the family.
This is forever, and I think that's what kind of allowed her to really let go and be like, this is my mom and dad. Like, this is my home, my family, my brothers and sisters. And so it's cute for her to be able to feel that place where she belongs.
I find that it is in this child's best interest to be adopted by the Becerra family.
They now have a total of 12 children, a combination they like to call their own Brady Bunch, a rewarding event for the attorney who helped with this adoption and the one before.
I just feel incredibly lucky to do what I do, and each family is special and each has their own unique story.
And the Becerra family is still keeping their door open to more children in the foster care system.
Every child that comes in our home changes our family in a positive way.
To become a foster parent in Arizona, visit the Arizona Department of Child Safety website or dcs.az.gov. In the newsroom, Julia Sandor, Cronkite News. As we prepare to invite family and friends back into our homes for Thanksgiving dinners, already thinking about leftovers, it's also the perfect time to give back to your community. Reporter Diana Quintero spoke with a high school student who works all year long to give back to her community.
According to the USDA, food waste accounts for about 30 to 40% of the nation's food supply. A local high school student is doing her part to combat the issue through her nonprofit, which donates to places like St. Mary's.
I actually started in 8th grade, so back in 2018.
It was a simple middle school science project where Venkatesh was able to present her surplus food efforts at the White House. Just a few years later, her nonprofit, Cultivate US, was up and running.
Obviously, world hunger is a huge problem.
And she's tackling the issue by collecting surplus food from home gardens, farms, and food rescue banks. She then donates them around the state.
And we take that excess produce and we distribute it to the less fortunate or to charity organizations.
Because her time is limited as a high school student, she's only out every other week, distributing between 120 to 150 pounds each time.
Oh, really?
Venkatesh believes food waste is a problem that encompasses both climate action and social justice.
And when food decomposes, it releases really harmful methane gases. So we're trying to, at the same time, save our climate and save our planet while also helping the people.
She even created an app to make the donation process more efficient, which is important during the busy season.
Since it's harvest season, we like to especially go during this time to get the most produce we can and go to places like soup kitchens where there's that community, and during that Thanksgiving time, people want to be around family and more friends.
For the kitchen, for the street.
Venkatesh is hoping to grow her nonprofit as she goes to college, hopefully one day reaching across the U.S. Cultivate US is always looking for donations, much like St. Mary's. Organizations like these really need help, especially during this time. In Phoenix, Diana Quintero, Cronkite News.
Even in a normal year, few parents would say that toy shopping is their favorite part of the holiday season. But this year's global shipping crisis has made the annual hunt for that perfect gift especially challenging. Cronkite News' Rob Winder reports on how one local business is adapting to help Santa get the job done.
I'm here at WILDLINGS Toy Boutique in Phoenix, which just opened its doors this past August, giving Phoenix residents an alternative to buying toys either online or at the big box stores. And while it's kind of a crazy time to open a business right now, the owner says the community has embraced her.
That looks cool.
It does.
There's another one. Look at that one.
Wow.
A lot of times for my 4-year-old and 6-year-old, I'm looking for things that are a little bit more unique than something you would find at a larger box store, and they definitely offer that.
Jennifer MAWCINITT, the owner of WILDLINGS Toy Boutique, says she opened at a time when the community was anxious to support small businesses again. But it's also a challenge because of ongoing issues with the global supply chain.
We typically are able to order all of the toys we want starting in October and have them here ready for holiday shopping and not have issues getting them in. That is just radically different this year.
MAWCINITT says she's been able to keep her shelves stocked by ordering early, ordering often, and ordering a wider variety of product, which Steve Passerb of the Toy Association says is an advantage for local businesses.
Well, small retailers are incredibly nimble, and they've been finding new vendors, new products, new alternatives to try to keep their stores open, and that's been really great.
But most of the toy brands at WILDLINGS are not household names like Hasbro or Mattel. And those suppliers face numerous hurdles in getting their product to store shelves and front porches. From understaffed warehouses to a shortage of truck drivers to exploding rates for shipping containers.
If you're a small company and your shipping container went from being $3,000 to $25,000 plus additional fees, you've just erased your profit in some categories.
Passerb says those higher rates for shipping containers also impact which types of toys reach store shelves.
What toy companies have been doing is looking at an average shipping container and say, do I ship the very large, low margin products, or do I ship the smaller sized, high margin products? Tonka trucks, for example, they're heavy, they take up a lot of room in the shipping container. That company has decided to bring in less this holiday season.
MAWCINITT says a recent shipment of toy trucks she received contained only about half of what she ordered.
There is definitely a delay in getting all of the inventory in of those great big items that we want to see in the store.
But MAWCINITT says for her store, all these shipping troubles actually have an upside too.
Big box stores, I'm hearing their shelves are a little bit more empty than normal. So I think in some ways it's been good for our small local business because people are coming to us looking for toys that they can't find at other places.
And customers who come to WILDLINGS won't find a shortage of friendly service and a passion for play. Now MAWCINITT says another shipment of trucks just came in and they are pretty well stocked now. But she tells her customers that if they see a truck, tractor, or any other toy on the shelf that they like, they need to buy it now because it may not be there the next time they come. In Phoenix, Rob Winder, Cronkite News.
Children's shelters are completely full while the number of foster parents available is decreasing, according to authorities. Cronkite News reporter MILAN Andrade explains the trend in the latest foster care numbers and what this means.
As of September 2021, there are 13,813 kids currently in foster care, and on average, about 30 kids per day. Children are back to school. And according to Chris Jacober of Arizona Friends of Foster Care Foundation, this is essential to detect abuse.
The biggest group they're called mandated reporters. So that's people who have their eyes on children and figure out who needs help, is teachers. And kids have not been in classrooms. So teachers have not had their eyes on children for a very long time.
Children's shelters are completely full, according to the Department of Child Safety. However, this is not a result of more kids in care since schools have opened. Rather, experts explain COVID-19 has decreased the amount of foster parents, resulting in full shelters.
the licensing process. There's a lot of people in and out of your home. There's a lot of work to be done during that process, and also just the thought of bringing kids into their home that they didn't know that were potentially going to school that could bring back germs and going to their visits with their bio parents.
DCS is turning to new outlets to get their message out. One Facebook post a month into the school year asked foster parents to open up their homes to more kids.
And this is really unusual. The director went right to the families to say, can you take one more child?
According to the DCS Facebook post, foster homes are needed for sibling sets, teens, and boys and girls ages 2 to 17. In Phoenix, MILAN Andrade, Cronkite News.
The holiday season is always a time to help those less fortunate. Cronkite News reporter Andrea Aguilera tells us how the Phoenix Rising recently assisted others by giving back to the community.
The Phoenix Rising partnered with State 48 Foundation and United Food Bank with one goal: to beat the Arizona Cardinals record for most emergency food bags packed in a single event.
These food bags are going to restock our shelves, especially now for the holidays coming up, so we can get food to people that need it most. The holidays have really increased with food need amongst the community of Arizona.
It's the first time that the three organizations work together.
We're a new foundation. Our major focus is building out entrepreneurship programming to help startups across the valley, along with doing community impact events like this, where we do really large volunteer-based events.
I think it's important that we try and take steps to stopping this world hunger. It's a great event, great charity event, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
The event beat the record of 5,000 bags packed and will help provide 43,500 meals.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Break It Down. That's next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
Rachel Lofton, thank you for being here to break it down for us on the inequities between men's and women's, boys and girls sports. Let's start off with the big one. Let's start off with March Madness. At least that's what we can call it for the men. The inequities there in terms of workout equipment, fitness centers, locker rooms, food, swag. Why is that? Why does this happen in our society in 2021?
You know, unfortunately, when I heard about this, I wasn't surprised. And the thing about it, as you say, I say unfortunately, because we are coming up on the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And a lot of times we put in policy, but we have to understand policy does not mean perfection. And I think it is time for us to reevaluate, because it is 2020 and we shouldn't have these inequities. And it goes beyond just not being able to show up and do your best and have the things there for you, but what message does that tell you?
Well, I guess you know, Rachel, what I've been always trying to figure out is how much of it, and just from your gut, I mean, neither of us knows, how much of it was an accident, you know, oh, we didn't mean to do this, and how much of it was, well, this is the women and this is the men, so this is what we're going to do here, and we're going to do different in Indianapolis, what we do in San Antonio. What's your gut feel for where we are now in terms of how much is intentional?
I think it's one of those things that if it doesn't affect you, you don't think about it. So the people in power, it does not affect them, therefore they do not think about it. I think a lot, again, with the passing of Title IX, they're like, okay, things are equal, that should be good. Just like the idea of schools being separate but equal, they were not equal. Again, for the people in power, they're really looking at the money makers and they're looking at the men as the money makers. So that's where their energy and their money is being poured into. I think it also comes with an attitude that women and men's sports aren't equal. Therefore, you don't want to put the money, the effort, the time, and ensuring that these things are equal between the both. I think, again, it's 2020, there's really not an excuse.
So what about, I guess, and this is devil's advocate because I'm not a believer, but there is an argument that men's sports bring in more money. There are more fans and otherwise. So therefore, that's why the inequity exists. I mean, you point out rightly that the Title IX is designed to fight against that and to bring about equity. But is there a business argument that makes any sense to you?
Men's sports are allowed to bring in more money because they're given the platforms to bring in more money. You have more money on television for men's sports because they're aired. You look at UCLA women's gymnastics team. Have you heard or thought about UCLA men's gymnastics team? No, but they have the platform. They're airing their meets. They're showing up on social media. They're putting money behind it because there is a desire for it. So at the same time, it's like, if you were to give them the platform, give them the equipment, give them the tools to actually succeed, who knows what could happen? If they were to pour in just as much advertising dollars, even on the local school level, just promoting it on campus as much as they did men's sports.
And we saw Megan Rapinoe recently at the White House, Equal Pay Day, pushing forward that issue as well, that even for, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody to argue that the women's national team in soccer is less impressive, less successful than the men's team. Yet there's still unequal pay that exists there. And that fits in the narrative you're giving us, that there's no reason for that other than that's the way it's been. There's not even very much of the business argument as others might make in other settings. Is that right?
As far as the business argument goes, sometimes you just need the platform or the opportunity. I mean, you look at the U.S. women's soccer team. They've been dominating. People are watching, not just here, but around the world. And so it's kind of one of those things, if you were to pour in the same things from the beginning, the same amount of energy, the same money to these women's institutions, not just at the elite level, but all the way from the bottom to the top, what evolution could you see in women's sports? Because that's really the question, is you can't make the business case because you've never really done it. So you can't say it's not possible, it's not going to turn a profit, or that people aren't going to watch. You don't know because it hasn't really been done.
So let's think about the impact. We look a lot at the impact on the players and kind of the business level. But what about for kids? What about little girls watching this? What kind of change would take place if there was a different message?
I think one of the things that's beautiful is this pause in the world and this opportunity to reflect and look back at sports. Representation is one of the biggest things that I think needs to happen, and at every level. And as far as opportunities to see yourself in coaching, in leadership from youth ages, to have women coaches. I played soccer from 3 to 12. All my coaches were men. So even looking at the youth level, you have these club teams with male coaches making money, not female coaches making money. But even me, I'm not seeing myself in the leadership position. I'm not seeing myself in a position of power or strength. I'm seeing male coaches. So even looking at starting at the bottom, just giving female coaches opportunities and then moving that up, because what does that say to see yourself in these powerful positions? What would it be like to have a female coach of a boys soccer team at a youth level? And so even to see yourself in that level.
We're not getting the whole story if we just look at, for example, the number of men coaches versus the number of women coaches. That data should be parsed further.
Yes. A couple of things that you're going to see, especially in sports, is while you do see women and women coaches and women starting in these leadership positions and working the way up throughout sports, it's mostly white women. You're not really seeing women of color as much in leadership positions and coaching positions, in these high paying positions of leadership. So oftentimes when you are seeing even male coaches, you're still seeing sometimes Black male coaches getting more opportunities than Black female coaches. And so really an underrepresentation of women of color around the board. And that is something that definitely needs to be addressed.
So Rachel, just in closing, a couple of thoughts, a couple of words. What does the world look like when there is sports gender equity and we no longer are dealing with this issue?
Well, I'm a firm believer that women hold up half the sky. And it would be amazing to see what the world would be like if all people were participants. I just think if you give us the chance, we'll surprise you. And I think that's it. Girls just need the chance.
Thank you, Rachel Lofton, for breaking down for us the inequities between men's and women's, boys and girls sports. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.